Hello, my name is Kathleen Mullen, and I am the co-curator of Queer Pix through our Kaleidoscope. It's a co-presentation with the Vancouver Latin American Film Festival and the Vancouver Queer Film Festival. The screening will be on September 13th at 8:30 p.m. at International Village Cineplex. And afterwards, we're going to all go to a party called Fuego, Fogo, Fiesta, afterwards at the Birdhouse. We're really excited about this program. I would like to acknowledge that I am on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. This land has been stewarded by them since time immemorial, and I want to honor their land. I'm going to pass it on to Robert Rios, my co-curator. Oh, and I also want to acknowledge the two co-curators at the Vancouver Queer Film Festival, the artistic director, Mary Galloway, and Maiya Dexel, the programming coordinator. Thank you. Robert?
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching us. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Robert Rios. I am proudly from Ecuador, and it's a pleasure to be here. As Kathleen said, we co-curated this Queer Pix since many years ago, and this time with the Vancouver Queer Film Festival. So yeah, we're going to introduce you this year's Queer Pix. This year's is called Through Our Kaleidoscope. Absurd, diverse, abstract, and profound. This year's Queer Pix celebrates a bold new wave of queer Latin American cinema that's breaking rules and pushing boundaries. It takes us into unexpected worlds, mixes genders, experiments with style, and opens up ways of telling queer stories. They're funny, dark, raw, surreal, and always deeply human. At the heart of it all is a powerful interplay between life and death, love and hate, joy and struggle. So welcome everyone to this magnificent Queer Pix Q&A session. I would like to let all these wonderful filmmakers to introduce themselves and tell us the names of their projects. So maybe we can start with MDB.
Hola, ¿conmigo? ¿Yo? Bueno, hola, yo soy Mila, soy Mila, soy de Argentina, soy la directora de MDB. Es un cortometraje que está situado en los años 2005 en mi ciudad, que es Mar del Plata, y habla sobre dos adolescentes que se enamoran en esa época y cómo el entorno reacciona a su amor. Em, Tengo que decir algo más. Tenía que presentar el corto, no te entendí, perdón, Robert.
No te preocupes, Mila.
Ah,
Si
ok.
puedes usar en inglés para que igual la gente en inglés, the people that knows English, understand you, o quieres que todo lo traduzca.
¿La pregunta?
Can you translate, Robert?
Sí, puede traducir tu presentación o quieres tú hacerlo en inglés. Mila.
¿Yo? Sí. My English is not so good. I'm going to try. I am Mila. I am the director of film MDB. I am from Argentina, a city called Mar del Plata. The history of my film is in my city, and we talk about two teenagers, girls, that they fell in love, but in like the history is like 20 years ago, como si en 2005. Entonces voy a seguir al español porque voy a tardar mucho si no. Trata sobre estas dos adolescentes que se enamoran y tienen un amor muy puro, y de repente como que el entorno no las entiende, entonces las empieza a juzgar y va sobre eso, de lo cruel que puede ser un entorno a un amor tan puro.
Perfecto, Mila. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much, Mila. And then we're going with Andrea Urquiola.
Hi, how are you? I'm Andrea Urquiola. I'm from Argentina. I live up north in a region called Salta. And my story is La Serrillana. It takes place in a very small town from a few kilometers from a small city. So it's a story about a mother reconnecting with her son. And her son is going through a transition, but she doesn't have the tools to understand what's going on with him, and he can't share what's happening with her. So they are totally disconnected, and they can look at each other, and they won't talk. And she finds a way to reconnect with him, which I think is very wise, because she doesn't go to a professional, she seeks help in another trans boy from her small town. And in the connection with him, she tries to reconnect with her son. It's based on a true story that I heard from a mom from my community of trans kid families. It's called Crianzas Diversas. I'm myself, I'm a mom of a trans girl. So I asked her if I could transform her story into a short story, and she was so happy, and she read the script and she cried, and she told me, "You must tell this story because it's beautiful." So I was really honored that that she and her son were happy for it. So I took the pledge to do it. And for me, after a long life working in advertising and not being able to break that fear barrier of shooting, it was like an extra push to do it. So I created La Sarrillana with a bunch of amazing people in Salta, and I'm so glad that it's here at the festival.
Thank you, Andrea. How interesting. We're going to talk about it just a little bit later. Maybe we can continue with Francisco from Cataratas.
Hi. My name is Francisco Vendomir. I'm also from Argentina. I'm really happy to see people from my country making films. While I don't know if you know about the situation of cinema here, but it's always nice to see people who are still making films here. And my short is Cataratas, and if I explain much about it, I will ruin it because it's very short. And but it's about a couple who's on the night of on New Year's Eve is going on a trip to Cataratas, which is Iguazu waterfalls, and there's an accident that makes it hard to do. Yeah, that complicates it. That's it.
Thank you, Francisco. Maybe we can continue with Pat from Luz Diabla.
Sure, hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, nice to meet you, everyone. I am Pat Plaza. I am also from Argentina. As you can see, there's a lot of queer people in Argentina. Here we are. So my film is Luz Diabla. I co-directed and co-written the film with Paula Boffo and Herba Kanda. We are from a collective, cinema collective called Ojo Raro. We work in animation. And Luz Diabla is an animation film. It's a co-production with Canada, actually. So it's this connection between Argentina and Canada. And it's a supernatural horror folk tale uh, about the clash of cultures between the urban queer raving scene and the traditional countryside world here in Buenos Aires, where I live. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Pat. And we can finish with Antonina, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Antonina Kerguelen. I'm the writer-director of Salsa. I'm from Colombia. And Salsa follows the story of two women in a Colombian coastal town, one of them being a deaf American tourist. And the film speaks about the connection that forms between these two women through salsa music and salsa dancing in a little Colombian coastal town near the ocean.
Well, that's wonderful. We already know like basics of each other, so we're going to listen to our friend Kathleen, who is going to direct us from the first session.
Yeah, so thank you and welcome. So yeah, so I guess I would really like to dive into sort of if this is your first film, sort of what inspired you, or if it's your second film, like to talk about your sort of where this film is within your place. Is it your first film? Is it your second film, etc.? And then also what inspired you to make it? Like what you know? So maybe we start with Antonina. Your film Salsa, you have a deaf character. You have a film about empowerment and finding oneself. Maybe you could start with this. Is this your first short? And also, what made you make this story?
Sure. So Salsa actually was born, the idea for the project was born 7 years ago. It was, sorry, can you hear me? I see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So it was born 7 years ago. It was meant to be my senior thesis for school. I went to school in the States, and I wanted to make this film as my senior thesis before graduating. But it ended up being a very complicated short film to actually make and find the funding for it. And it was just very logistically and budget-wise complicated. So it was a road of 7 years to actually get the short film made. I wrote the script in 2017, and then up until 2021, we were able to shoot, and we premiered the film. We were in post-production on and off for a couple of years as well, and then we finally premiered the film at Tribeca last year. And it's not my first film. I've made some short films before, but it's the first film that I did outside of like the school system. So after I graduated from school. And the inspiration from it came, I come from a family in Colombia, from the coast of Colombia, and that region is very known to be very colorful and cheerful and happy, and you have great food, and you have great music, and you have just like a very rich embracing culture. But then the other side of it is a very also traditional and like conservative culture where there's very strict and like set gender roles, and like if you go out of the norm a little bit, you're like constantly being stared at. And And so I grew up being obviously like I was like a weird kid, and I was never quite comfortable with how girlhood or womanhood was presented to me. So I was growing up, yeah, just like the weird kid in this environment, and if it started being like a very difficult thing to come to terms between loving my culture and loving the music coming out of my culture, loving salsa music. And the coast was where I fell in love with salsa music and salsa parties specifically. So it was like this dilemma of like loving the culture but also feeling like an outsider from the culture. But there was like this one space where those two things could coexist, and they were like the salsa parties, specifically in like a couple of places that are incredibly famous in Barranquilla to go salsa dancing. And so I started realizing that these were spaces where you could sort of like converge these two things that I loved and that made me question myself about my culture. And then the extra layer was this like sensorial element of the music and the parties, and like how the parties in this region of Colombia come from very specific sound systems called picos, and basically when you hear the music you can also feel it in your chest. And that just made me think of how music and dancing and feeling the music can sort of create a new language to communicate, even if you can't understand each other in terms of language, or if in this case there's a disability. Like music becomes and dancing becomes that sort of like new language that can bring people together.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I think we'll jump to Pat, because yours is Luz Diabla is like placed in sort of rave culture. So it's also music. And so maybe we can jump to you with the question.
Yeah, I think it's basically to reflect upon our own lives, I would say, as South American urban queer people, and kind of in a certain way to have a critic view upon our own lifestyle and making fun of ourselves, because sometimes we take ourselves too seriously, I think. I mean, the queer community. I know we have historically been persecuted and that we have a lot of, problems that have not been solved. But still, sometimes I think it's, in this defensiveness that we develop during the different generations and against, of course, many different forms of violence. But sometimes we become these kind of archetypal characters, and in particular in the queer scene, of course, the gay people, which is like gay guys, and in particular the mean gay guys, and I developed this like some form of, overprotection of ourselves sometimes, but there are, these stereotypical, really shady gay guys. So we wanted to create a character that we see in the night. It's related to our own lifestyle. We are ravers. We like to party. I'm a little older now, but I used to go a lot. I still do, but it's part of the queer culture in South America, in particular in Buenos Aires. And at the same time, it's reflecting upon the thing that usually the westernized cultures like ours, we think that there's only one way of being gay, or only one way of being queer. And when we are in contact with other forms of queer life, which are not like the city, urban, or westernized queer life, usually we have a lot of prejudge, we make judgments about the people. We think that people from the rural world is all conservative and they are all homophobic, and they just live their own lives and even their own queer lives in different ways. So we wanted to speak a little bit about this and to reflect upon yes, I mean, we can all be judgmental in a way, I think. And queer people we are not away from that, It's a problem that it's human, I would say. So it's basically to put these worldviews or these different queer forms of life in contact, in a way, and have a little fun with that. So yeah, I mean, music is really important in our film too. Of course, electronic music and techno in particular, it's a huge part in the. I mean, the raving culture and the queer culture are kind of inseparable. I would say you cannot separate them because it's like, of course, the raving culture is directly related with the queer culture. So it's kind of trying to bring that word into collision with a supernatural entity that in a way it's like manifesting all these contradictions, I would say, that we are constantly dealing with.
Great. And was this your first? This was not your first project, or what? Tell us a bit about this project.
Yeah, about this story. Sorry, I didn't answer that. Yeah, it's this is like my sixth short work in animation. So it's each project in animation is like a lot of effort. It's very different to live action in terms of production, of course. And animation, I think short films are still like one of the last, I would say, independent, I don't know, beacons in a way, because it's like the short format in animation is so much free than, of course, feature films, which are like have a lot of budget and and all the markets, conditioning, because it's usually it's for kids or family. You have a lot of restraints in the feature film format. So animated shorts are still very alive, very independent, and I would say it's like one of the most interesting formats in the audiovisual landscape. At least in the last, I don't know, 15 years. There's a lot of animation now that it's like not following what the market is asking of us. So I think it's pretty interesting to watch at the independent animation world. So yeah, we have been working. I mean, Ojo Raro started like 5 or 6 years ago. This is like it was our third film. We all have this connection. All of these films, of the films that we have developed in the last few years, have this connection of having a queer South American perspective. It's kind of our approach to animation, which when we began, it was kind of, what, you want to make like weird South American animation? Who is going to watch that? Is there a market for that? Because everyone thinks about the market, and I don't know, if I want to watch it, maybe other people will want to watch it too. There are other queer people who is interested in watching queer animation. So that's basically what we've done.
Yeah, great, thank you. I'm going to go to Francisco next because I feel like the films are related, the three, and because yours is also in an urban setting, and then of course I'll go to Andrea and Mila, but yours is also set in an urban setting, and maybe you could, well, first of all, like, how did you come to the film and what inspired you, and a little bit about, so about yourself and the film.
Okay. So this is not my first film. I made a feature a few years back, and I made a few shorts, and I never studied film, but I've always worked in film like since forever. And this in particular happened, like the idea came to me, like in the short, one thing that happens, and was the first idea that I fell in love with, was that this woman was leaning on a wind on the by the window. I don't know. Whatever. And her phone fell, and she was in a very high building, and it fell so fast that it like stuck on the head of someone who was passing by. And then I thought about the idea of her like going down, and the phone still working, and she talking through. So I didn't know why I came up with the idea, but I was at the time I was in a relationship with Stefan, who was from Sweden. I met him in Sweden, and we were planning on going to he was coming to Argentina, and we were planning to spend New Year's in Cataratas, basically. And we didn't see each other for like a year. We made that plan and we didn't see each other for a year, but the plan was there. And I was seeing Gonzalo at the same time. And I was so like and I had this plan that I couldn't talk about. And at the same time, yeah, but we had made that plan already. So I think that it probably came from the fact that I wasn't able to speak or to say what was
Communicate.
going on. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that the description of the phone in the head. I mean, it's like
Yeah, but at the same time, because like they're speaking and there's a big problem that there's a phone stuck on the head of this boy, and I can't say that we cannot go on our trip to Cataratas because this is what's happening. And I thought like it was very like, well, very literal and at the same time beautiful, because it was the phone was in the middle of the conversation, and like
Mhm.
in the middle of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
I love that. Thank you. So I'm gonna go to Andrea and Mila. Andrea, like, so because both your film are about children, about families and children, and the relationship between the choices that families can make to be accepting in a way. So maybe we could start with Andrea. I know that you're an emerging filmmaker. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that, and then also and you've talked a little bit about what inspired your film, but maybe you could just go a little deeper on that one and the characters.
Okay, yes, this is my first short film. I just have done a music video, and then I co-directed a campaign to support the abortion law in Argentina, but I've never done a short film, like a fiction short film. So for me, it was challenging, first of all, to after all these years to break the fear. And the inspiration came, as I told before, from a true story of my trans kids families community. It was like a journey, first from the heart, because the story was for me very emotional. But it also has been very powerful in the community right from the start, because the casting call was also like a very powerful moment in which I receive kids, these trans kids that were around our community, and it was very cathartic for them to even perform this casting. So as it is my first experience, I just could be could see how art is really powerful right from the start, and how the work of art is not just yours, it belongs to everybody that is part of it. Even when we were shooting, this woman that was working in the catering with us, she asked what the story is about, and this gaffer told her what was it about, and she started to tell him that she had this nephew that is going through the same. So she asked, is there a place that they can go to get help? So I just saw that, and for me it was like a proof that art is really something that we need as a community. So well, that's my inspiration.
Thank you. That's it. And Mila, so yes, could you speak about your film and inspiring? It's a very beautiful, MDB is very beautiful film, and maybe you could talk about you as a filmmaker and also about the inspiration.
Bueno, lo que me inspiró es momentos incómodos en mi vida, como me cuestiono cosas que me han pasado en las cuales yo me he sentido incómoda, que siento que es algo que nadie debería sentirse nunca. Em, entonces empecé a acordarme de mi infancia, de mi adolescencia y todos esos momentos que yo me sentí incómoda. La verdad que está basado en mi propia vida, todas las cosas que le pasan al personaje son cosas que me han pasado a mí. Em, yo soy de una...
Do you want to pause for a minute and then Robert can translate?
Thank you, Kat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Mila says that what inspired her was the uncomfortable moments in her life. Like she was inspired by her childhood, her youthful, the relation that she had with this environment that was going around her. And yeah, you can continue, Mila. Thank you.
Em, Vivo en una ciudad balnearia donde la gente de Buenos Aires viene a vacacionar. Y cuando yo era chica, los eventos culturales que habían acá eran mujeres compitiendo por su cuerpo, quién tiene mejor cola. Eh, en los 2005, en la época que estaba basada el corto, era una etapa muy superficial. Y yo con todo ese entorno que existía, justo me enamoro de una chica teniendo 14 años. Ahí corto, si no
Sí,
Roberto me
justo.
mata.
Muchas gracias. Sí, porque le estoy anotando aquí. Yeah. Yeah. So Mila says that she lives in a coast city, you know, where people go to have their summer trips and some vacation time, relaxing time. She says that the people from Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, often go to there. And in that time, when the short film was based, there were contests of women showing up her bodies. And it happened that she was one time there and she just fell in love with one woman. I see.
Para mí fue una etapa que me escondía todo el tiempo. Para mí era muy difícil poder admitir que yo estaba enamorada de una chica porque el entorno juzgaba mucho, no lo entendían. Y hacer este corto para mí fue hacer terapia, porque yo jamás en mi vida pude casi admitir que gustaba de una chica y ahora haciendo el corto fue como gritar algo, decir algo, sacar algo de mi cuerpo que en su momento me daba mucha vergüenza. Entonces, claramente mi inspiración fue hacer terapia a través del cine.
Perfecto, thank you. Mila says that she hid it for a time, that it was very daring for her to admit it, that she liked the woman, right? Because the environment didn't understand her. This short, she says, was therapy because it felt like she was screaming and she went from shame to acceptance and love.
Gracias, Roberto.
Gracias a ti, Mila, no te preocupes.
And Robert, can you ask her about, that's beautiful. And can you ask her about her filmmaking?
Yeah, of course. This is interesting. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, so we already know like the basics of each other, right? And we would like to give you and tell you some questions that are going to go like in a deeper way. I want to start with Pat from Luz Diabla. It was interesting, you know, like what you said, like these differences between like the urban queer community and the folk queer community. And you know, like I love like how you said it, like we're having just a little fun with this man. And uh, knowing that the only short here of animation is yours, and that your team, how daring was to construct all of these moments in animation, because you know it seems like it's very cohesive, everything. And this character goes through from moment to moment, from this emotion to this another emotion. It goes like flawlessly, like the animation is flawless. It's flawless actually, and congratulations for that. But I wanted to know, like, what was the biggest challenge, like, you know, like for this from this process, and construct it for, like, a step from step.
Okay, thanks for your nice words about the film. Well, I think this is something that we do at Ojo Raro too. It's like that we work with genre. As I mentioned at the beginning, the film is like a supernatural horror, I would say, or gay horror, whatever. And it also had this folk, you know, yeah, kind of folk horror approach, which we like to work with genres, because I think genres are like really like an interesting starting point in filmmaking, because you have like all these, you know, tropes and all these archetypes in narrative terms. So you already have a place to begin, and at the same time the audience has a place to very quickly, you know, settle into the story, because you tropes, you work with this. I mean, folk horror, it's, you know, full of these tropes about the urban character who arrives in a rural mystical place, and something, you know, supernatural happens that puts in tension, you know, that creates friction between the modern Western world and the ancient world, in a way. So this is like the starting point. And I think it makes it really easy to, you know, begin with that, and then try to, in a certain way, twist it, which is like the kind of the queer approach would be to begin with a very classical structure, you know, even in genre and in horror in particular, and then to introduce a twisted element that it's kind of unexpected, and it kind of makes you, oh, so this is not what I expected, in a way, right? So that's basically the narrative procedure, I would say, that we applied in this film. And then in production terms, it was interesting, it was complicated, it was fun, it was frustrating, but at the same time, it was like the first time that we worked with a co-production with Canada. So then we did all the pre-production, we did like the screenplay, we did the storyboards, the animatic here in Argentina, and then the animation was done by Lakeside Animation, which is a studio in Canada, in Toronto, and it was really interesting because their team, it's like really multinational, and there's a lot of basically the most of the team was Russian women, because they are like most of the studio is Russian animators who are in the diaspora, you know, because of the war, and they are like everywhere, and most of them were women, but at the same time most of them didn't speak English either. So it was like really interesting to try to not only to communicate, but at the same time it was like really interesting to work with, you know, Russian animation has a long tradition which is very different to the Western animation, and it's kind of related to the project itself, because it's about, you know, different traditions in a way, and it was because the film was speaking about, different ways of doing things, and in this case was how we animate and how we, we have a Western, usually like this, our animation method is mostly influenced by the US method or the European method because of colonialism and all that. And in this case, they had like a different technique. So it was really interesting to try to blend the way how we do things and the way how they do things, And it's very different pipelines in animation. So it was pretty challenging at the beginning. But in a certain point, we kind of, understood each other. We changed a little bit our methods. They changed a little bit our methods, and we found like a common ground, which is like, I think the best way to do things. Actually, it's not just to try to bring your worldview and impose it to the other. It's just, okay, let's try to, accept our difference and try to make something out of that. So that was pretty much.
Well, cool. It's interesting because, like what we are watching on screen, it was happening behind the scenes, like very people from different cultures and styles working together to put this animation that is wonderfully done. Congratulations again. And it's interesting, because the first time I watched it, I was freaked out. I mean, everything was so well done that I was freaked out, and I loved it. That isn't my kind of content, my kind of animation, but I really loved it because it was so well done. And you have this music, you have these neon elements, neon colors, this raw texture, and I loved it. These close-ups for the eyes, for the changes, and for these moments that everything goes around now, right? And this is the opposite, I think, of La Cerillana. I think, for example, La Cerillana is so much more calmer. The silences here, Andrea, are something amazing. I told Kathleen while we were curating, like the festival, this is so interesting because you don't have much dialogue. You don't have that. You have these specific actions that move the drama and everything there. In La Cerillana, it's all about the gaze, the looks, the eyes, and the silences. So I was wondering, and I wanted to tell you this and give you this question, Andrea. How did you manage to put what was going in your personal life, those silences, into this fiction?
Well, I've never thought about it, but I just, as you were telling it, I'm from Patagonia, which is a very different region in Argentina, and I've lived most of my life in Buenos Aires. And if the story had been, I lived almost 1/3 of my life in Patagonia, 1/3 in Buenos Aires, and 1/3 in Salta. And if the story would have to taken place in Patagonia or in Buenos Aires, I think the pace would have been other, and the words might have been a lot, but in that small town, in that area where people is quieter, and they are slower, they take their lives different. So I think it had to do with the observation and how I get to know people there. And so I think it's a reflection of how people is there, how they manage, how they connect with others. And so I had this actress that has seen in other films. She's from Tucumán, which is another province in Argentina, and she has been like in a few films, in Los Dueños, in Planta Permanente, which are films that I've seen from her, that she could communicate a lot without words, and with the silences she communicated a lot. So she was a really a great option for the short film. And I think, yeah, the dialogue reflects that. And I was also thinking of the animation scene that I have at the end. It's almost a spoiler, but I had done this because I was thinking of what Pat was saying, and that scene was created by my daughter. That she's an animator, so and she was the reason that I was in that community of trans kids. So everything kind of clicked at the end when I find that that the short film needed like a more fantasy ending. Um, so I think the small dialogues have to do a lot with that, with how we connect, and in another in another way without words. Sometimes we're just with how we feel to each other.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Andrea, what you said. And that's how we are start like noticing, right? How every single piece here connect with each one with another.
Yeah.
And I think like it's because we are Latinos and we feel like this fire inside. I mean, I love to say that when we love with all of our hearts, and when we hate, we hate with all of our hearts. It's very intense. Like our community, our identity is that. And going like taking this point, I want to ask Antonina from Salsa, what was like to come back to Colombia and film your short film Salsa, and what difference did it make, like being there in the environment, compared to being in the USA and film projects there? How did your eyesight like change, and how do you feel? Like, do you think that it maybe changed like the way that you shot everything? It affected, like, can you tell us something about it?
Sure. So Salsa is not the first short that I filmed in Colombia. I filmed one short like the beginning of my second year in college. I shot one short film in Bogota. But it was also like very early on in my film career, or like exploration. And then Salsa we filmed in the coast, which is very, very different to Bogota. And we also filmed in like not in a major city, so it was like a huge challenge to actually get everyone, like all of the crew and the cast and everyone, to that area of Colombia. And it definitely changed. I mean, when I lived all my life in Colombia, but I knew when I was in high school that I wanted to leave in order to study. Like I wanted to go abroad for college, because I never quite felt truly represented or comfortable with Colombia. I always felt like an outcast, and I always felt weird. And I think that in my teenage years, I just wanted to go someplace where I could sort of feel more identified. And I ended up going, to an art school in the States. And ironically enough, it was by being in the States that I felt a connection again with my country. Because when you're away, you start remembering the fantastic things. Like you start thinking not about like how you felt like an outcast, but you start remembering, oh, the food and my friends and this beach and that spot. And I thought that was quite beautiful, because I thought that I was never going to feel connected back with my country. I never imagined that I would come back to Colombia, and I now live in Colombia. And I thought it was never going to happen, but it did happen. That longing for telling some like a story in Colombia came because I was outside. And I think that journey of like having to travel abroad in order to come back and feel more connected, like that journey truly changes you. And but also studying in the States gave me, I think, a different audiovisual point of view, maybe to how maybe cinema is taught in Colombia, and like the influences that you have studying in an American school versus in a Latin American school. Even though like you learn film, that there's definitely an environment that shapes you, like you find more independent driven, like auteur driven influences in Colombia, while maybe I studied more. I did study the auteurs and the independents, but I also was under a very like Hollywood umbrella, you know. And I think that coming back to Colombia and coming back specifically to that coastal town, which I forgot to mention, this is the coastal town where I sort of like grew up. My grandparents have a beach house there, and we actually all of my cast and crew, we all stayed in this beach house during the shoot. We were like 30 people sleeping under one roof. It was kind of insane. But then that combined to coming back here, it definitely, I think, shaped my way of seeing the characters and seeing the country, you know, and like putting a camera in this environment that was so familiar, but at the same time, I was so transformed by my previous experience that I think it definitely there's like a mix of influences there. And I also think it's really funny because I think the film has spoken more to an international audience than to an actual local audience. Like it, you know, people have seen it here in Colombia, and we've been in festivals and different projection spaces. But the film has done very, very, very well within international spaces. So I think that also speaks about the background maybe, and like the lens that it was shot with. Not literally, but like the view where it came, the
Point of view.
theme. Yeah, exactly. So I think there's definitely, and I mean, the film is about that, you know, like the mix of culture in order to form a connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That was interesting, you know, like to take everything that you said and just see how everything shapes, the Antonina of the present, right? Or the version of that Antonina that showed the salsa. And quiero seguir esta vez con Mila, y quiero tomar dos palabras específicas que tomó en este caso Antonina, muchas gracias, y me quedo con la parte de la identidad, cómo construimos esta identidad, ¿verdad? Y también con las memorias que menciona Antonina, o los recuerdos. Entonces eso, tú mencionaste eso, Antonina, y me recuerda mucho a lo que es MDB de Mila. Y mi pregunta para ti, Mila, es la siguiente. El corto MDB está filmado, para mí es como medio un sueño, ¿no? Es una atmósfera del sueño, para mí me remite como algo nostálgico al pasado, lo logra de una manera increíble. Y quería saber cómo es que tú lograste con tu equipo, ya en este caso dirección de foto quizá, o cómo te inspiraste para llegar a esta atmósfera, porque tienes estos cielos increíbles de la ciudad costera, estas atmósferas de intimidad en el cuarto, y también el corto raya a veces se sale de las liñitas, ¿no? De las líneas del realismo. O sea, hay estos pequeños planos secuencias que son como que se saltan y tú dices, ah, qué interesante que es esto. O sea, se permite jugar con la imaginación. Quería saber un poquito de cómo llegaste hasta ahí, cómo lo comunicaste a tu equipo y qué fue eso que te ayudó a lograrlo exitosamente. Y antes de que me respondas, porfa, lo voy a traducir en inglés para que nuestra audiencia lo entienda. So I was taking two keywords from Antonina, you know, like the memories and the identity. So I wanted to ask her, Mila, that her film MTV is beautifully done, and there are so many shots and the sequences really felt like they built, you know, this atmosphere, this past atmosphere, almost this nostalgic atmosphere. So I asked her, like, how did she came up with that? How did she communicate that with her team, and how they did get that successfully? So thank you, Mila.
Bueno, nos divertimos mucho haciéndolo porque si bien es una época pasada, no es tan lejana, entonces muchas de las cosas, sobre todo vestuario, era vestuario que yo tenía y que mis amigas tenían. Em, Hicimos muchas colectas por Instagram para conseguir celulares. em, y después lo que más conseguimos, yo quería el Axe de chocolate, que es Es un desodorante con un olor especial que se usaba en esa época también. Por una colecta en Instagram lo conseguimos. Em, y el resto de crear la atmósfera es porque era algo nuestro. Es cuando estás haciendo algo que vos viviste, que es como muy honesto, muy real. Eh, el personaje usa la camiseta del club, al club que yo iba, ¿entendés? Me voy a ahí cortar.
Yeah, perfecto, Mila. Muchas gracias. Aquí voy a traducirlo, ¿ya? So Mila says, this was a funny process because she and her team were collecting, like different stuff from from that time. It was like it happened like 20 years ago. So they were collecting through Instagram, cell phones, and she remembers this specific thing that was this deodorant called Axe. It has this smell of chocolate that it was something very characteristic in that time. And she says that the atmosphere was easy to recreate because it was something that she felt that was theirs. Like when she says, like when something is yours and you are honest, you achieve that. And yeah, you can continue, Avila.
Con respecto a la parte audiovisual que vos mencionás, que se va un poco de lo cotidiano, fue buscada para tratar de generar, si bien vos decías tipo onírico, como un sueño, en realidad muchas cosas son más una pesadilla que un sueño también. Entonces, eran para tratar de poder demostrar las sensaciones más desde el montaje, que llegue más la sensación, ¿no? Tratando de usar el lenguaje audiovisual para representar las sensaciones. Y la dirección de foto la hice yo también, entonces para mí era más fácil entender lo que yo quería y es muy simple también la dirección de foto, o sea, parece como que está por ahí muy trabajada, pero en realidad es todo muy simple y estaba muy segura de lo que quería y la grabé en la casa de mi papá, entonces también era un lugar que yo conocía bastante, con amigos, realmente trabajé con muchos amigos. eh, bueno, lo voy a cortar ahí para
Yeah,
no
gracias,
saber.
Mila. No te preocupes. So Mila says, talking about the audiovisual part, like she says, sometimes it feels like a dream and a nightmare because she wanted to portray this, like from the point of view of the characters. She says that she wanted to communicate the sensations to the audience in order to make us feel like what is going into the character's mind. She says that she also did the direction of photography, and it was something simple. It made me appear like something very very worked, but she says like it was simple because she was sure, she was secure of what she wanted to communicate, and she filmed this at her father's house with some friends, and she had a good time.
Gracias, Robert.
Perfecto. Thank you, Mila. Y bueno, well, actually, I would like to go to Francisco, to Cataratas, and like you told us that you didn't study cinema, you just are a passionate man for films. How is that your experience have? How is that this interesting thing? Because I see like your film, like these things that happen into your films, it is your identity. It is like this chaotic mind that is yours also. And how it's been your trip, your journey from going into the cinema and then do the films by yourself? How and what has been your biggest challenge so far?
As a filmmaker, I My mother is a writer, and so writing was a way of, so I've always wrote because my mother loved me if I could write. So like there was one of the things that happened in my house was that my parents didn't want to have accountants in the family, and they thought like yeah, the writing or making music and all of that was what you should do, and that's pretty much all that is good that my parents did. But when I started university, I started literature, letras. I don't know what the translation is. But I was always surrounded by the well, my mother had a lot of friends who did cinema, and then like I was always in the middle of this yeah, I don't know, like but yeah, but I was always surrounded by people who made films. And also, I think this is because I'm a gay person. We are always trying to prove ourselves in front of a lot of people. I think like I've always wanted to be a writer, but then cinema is bigger, and like so like there's a bigger audience. There's a like so I naturally went on that direction. And so no, I never studied cinema, but I always did it, and I've always worked with people who did study cinema and did make films. What was challenging about it, like the same as the well, always with cinema, the main challenge is money always, because as any craft, because it is a craft, you have to do it. The only way to do it is doing it, and it's so expensive to do it. Like most of the other things you can do, you can practice, like writing or drawing or making music, but this is something else. So yeah, but thankfully in Argentina there are ways to fund films if you but well, not now, but we've always had a very supportive state.
Right.
So yeah, so there are ways to. This is not a really good moment to talk about this, because we have now a government that doesn't support these ideas, and all of that is kind of on hold. But yeah, that's mostly how I could do make films with the help of others, and among those others are state funding.
Right, Francis.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Oh, yeah.
okay, go ahead, Kat.
No, I did want to kind of jump in and ask you, because your lens is you decided to you're gay, and you decided to make your film about a lesbian couple, and so maybe you could talk a little bit about that choice of having a
Yes.
another perspective.
Well, I decided that I wanted to do. I couldn't do this story. I couldn't tell this story through in a way like I can't explain this really, but every time that I'm talking about myself in film, the characters that I pick are women. For some reason, I feel more identified with that kind of which is ridiculous what I'm about to say, but like when it, like for example, in my I made a feature film in like the only character that is based on who I was is a little girl, which is a bit like yeah. So I felt like it made sense. I did think I did write it. I no, I mean I did think about like maybe changing that, but I felt like it worked better that way. I don't know. There's not much, yeah.
No, I was just curious. I mean, it totally works, and I love
Yeah.
it, and I love that you did that, and I love the different. And we can talk for hours, but I think we're
And
gonna
also
probably
like
wrap up.
one
We could
thing,
wrap up soon with all of us, but you know that we are able to tell stories from different characters' perspectives. I mean, and that's
I
something I
think like
love about film.
we've all grown up in like seeing like these queer cinema always like, which is good, but I mean like we've always all the queer films, at least when I was younger, were about the problem of being queer. And I think that now we are seeing more that these stories that just are stories of queer people who yeah, have other conflicts to that
Yeah.
are not related to the fact that they are queer.
Sí, ya, absolutely, Francisco. Y de hecho, eso ya como para ir cerrando un poco, ¿no? Ya vamos a cerrar primero en español y después en inglés. Justo lo que tú dices, Francisco, es el tema creo que central de todo esto, lo que nosotros hemos tenido como curadores de este Queer Pix de este año, ¿no? Se llama A través de nuestro caleidoscopio, porque como ustedes saben, el caleidoscopio tú te colocas en el ojo, ¿verdad? Lo ves y ves un montón de colores. Entonces, sí, es verdad. Y yo te puedo decir esto, que es algo que he notado también. Los últimos años, desde que trabajamos, bueno, yo trabajo personalmente con CAD en el festival aquí en el Pilaf, ya la mayoría de los cortos no tiene ese... En la mayoría de los cortos de la comunidad no hay el precio que tú pagas por ser de la comunidad. No estás pagando un precio, pero todavía lo hay y todavía lo hiciste porque sigue habiendo, o sea, sigue existiendo personas que pagan un precio. Entonces, ahorita creo que bellísimo este Q&A porque, por ejemplo, aquí vemos una madre que está entendiendo a su hija a través de su arte, ¿no? Qué increíble. Y también vemos aquí a Mila que está sanando, como dijo, el arte es terapéutico y es igual de válido para todos los que estamos aquí. Entonces me parece increíble que nuestras historias se estén diversificando. Todavía hay un montón de historias que contar, todavía hay historias quizá más tradicionales, más alocadas, más todo, pero creo que eso es como lo diverso nos caracteriza a nosotros y eso es lo que nos queremos, lo que yo también quisiera que se lleven el día de hoy. Y lo segundo es que se lleven que esta es una plataforma, el VILAF siempre ha sido una plataforma para artistas que no están con grandes casas, en este caso, ¿no? De productoras, distribuidoras. La idea es de que sea una plataforma para que ustedes también puedan hacer networking, que conecten, que no tengan miedo en escribirse después y decir, mira, ¿qué te parece esto? Me gustaría colaborar contigo, ¿qué tal si nos contactamos? Y que esas puertas se abran. Y bueno, yo desde Ecuador les quiero agradecer por todo el arte que ustedes están haciendo. So I'm going to translate it for our English community. The first thing that I was saying that that we as curators alongside with Vancouver Queer Film Festival, it was that we called these Queer Pix through our Kaleidoscope because, you know, like when you watch through the Kaleidoscope, you watch tons of colors. And we thought that it was like a very similar thing to what our community is. We have we are very brave, we are very courage, we have also these fears also because in some parts of the world our rights are being you know, like in threat, right? So this is beautiful. They have you here is beautiful. People watching how different we are is beautiful, because our community is colorful, it's different, and and we need to keep fighting, keep pushing through art. And the second thing that I wanted to tell you is that this is a safe space. The BLAF is this platform for everyone who believes in their art, believes in the art of other people, and feel free to reach out, to connect, to try to work together, to network. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving us your energy. And this is being a lovely Q&A session, and I'm going to give it up to Kathleen.
Okay, I just want to thank you all. Well, thank you, Robert. I mean, that was beautiful. It's amazing. Thank you all for being here today. Muchas gracias. And it's really, really wonderful to have this conversation with you. And I hope we can all keep in touch. And once again, the Queer Pix through our Kaleidoscope will be screening on September 13th on the Saturday at 8:30 p.m. At both Vancouver Latin American Film Festival and Vancouver Queer Film Festival at the International Village Cineplex. And then we will all go party at Fuego Fogo afterwards at the Birdhouse. So thank you so much. And I'm so glad that we're all been together here. I don't know if like to say goodbye or say anything to end any of the filmmakers.
I wanted to say that it's so good what Robert was saying and Francisco was saying, that we really need to work on a new language, on a new stories that sometimes are optimistic, because even though we still know about the struggle, me as a parent of a trans girl, I know that in my country the life expectancy of trans people is still so low, and we are scared, but we know that we must change that we must be we must show that we embrace our kids, that we are proud of our kids, that these kids are going to college, they are building their lives. So I think that we must still acknowledge the struggle, and to recognize all that has been done, that we have to change the stories to be more optimistic, and to create some stories that reflect our people. So that I wanted to say. And thank you very much for having us.
Of course.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to ask you if you can smile. Maybe I can take a screenshot for the record. So everybody put their, okay. 3, 2, 1, and another one. And yeah. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.